Hi everybody, welcome. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. Thank you all so much for coming. Just whilst we're waiting, if you would like to put into the chat where in the world you're from, and look outside your window and tell us what's happening, because a little while ago we had a bit of snow outside our window here. So if you just want to do that whilst we're waiting for everybody else to attend, and we'll start. Hello, hello. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
We can hear you, Neil.
Okay. Sorry, I was struggling with.
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Ready to go. Oh, you're on mute again, Neil.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. My apologies, having some technology issues today. Can you all hear me fine? Because it shows that I'm muted.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. From my end, it's showing that someone keeps muting me. So please don't mute me if you wherever that's coming from. So apologies for the technical issues. Thank you all so much for joining our November webinar. The session today is Brave Enough to Talk, because strength starts with honesty. And this is very much to support Men's Mental Health Month. And I'm really grateful that we've got a real mix of people here today, not just men, because this is a subject that we all need to get better at talking about. So before we get into this, firstly, I want to ask, how many of you noticed that there are a lot of men that struggle with their mental health? Yeah, see a few people. Thank you. How many are concerned that men, when they do struggle with their mental health, don't seek support? They don't seek out help? Okay, again, I can see quite a few of you putting your hands up. And how many of you haven't noticed men struggling with their mental health and not concerned about them seeking support? Okay, well, if you've got your hand up for the last question, thank you for being here anyway. Hoping that you'll get value from today's conversation. And if you don't know who we are, let me give you a little bit of background on us. Firstly, how many of you are here for the first time? How many of you never attended one of our webinars before? Any first timers? Okay, a couple of you. Fantastic. Well, welcome. You're most welcome. How many of you have been to one of our webinars before? Okay, great. Fantastic. So several of you have attended our sessions before. Also, I have just noticed that most of you can't put your cameras and microphones on. Ruth or Judy, could you just change the settings so people can put their cameras on and unmute themselves? That would be amazing. So we can have an interactive conversation. This session is being recorded. The reason we're recording it, there's a lot of people that do want to be a part of these discussions that can't attend in person. So we will be sharing the recording after the session. But if there's anything of a particularly sensitive nature that's shared on this session, we will edit that out before sharing it. Fantastic. Thank you. So Stress and Anxiety, we are an international non-profit organization I set up in 2003 off the back of a first-hand experience with my own mental health, which led to a breakdown and attempted suicide. And it was through the recovery of that I recognized that what I really wanted to do with my life is help other people that go through the same kind of thing. We also run a research and consultancy organization called International Wellbeing Insights, and through both sides of the organization, we've reached millions of people over the last 20 years. And a big part of that is raising awareness and creating safe spaces for us to have conversations around things that aren't easy or comfortable to engage in, like our mental health. We can only continue doing this work with your generous support. We don't have any external funding. So if you're able to, any small donations to allow us to continue reaching people, running our campaigns and running kind of the regular engagement activities like these webinars, please do so. You can take a screenshot of the QR code on the screen, or my colleague Judy will put a link into the chat on how you can do that as well. Just also a couple of things on how to make the most of this session. We're going to do our best to have an interactive discussion, even though there is almost, how many of us? No, almost 100 of us here already. We want to be able to do as best as we can to create an experience as if we were actually in the room together. So if you can, put your cameras on. This isn't a lecture. It's designed to be an interactive discussion. Going to ask lots of questions. Please get involved, unmute yourself, jump on the mic and share your thoughts, feelings and perspectives. If you've got questions, comments, if you want to share experiences, if you want to disagree, if you need to seek clarification, if you need me to slow down, whatever you need at any point over the next hour or so, I'm here to serve and support you to the best of my ability. I'm also supported today by my colleague Judy. Judy, please give us a wave. Judy's my co-pilot today. And any questions or anything that you need help or support with, feel free to put comments into the chat and she will happily do her best to support you. We have a short amount of time and a big subject, so let's make the most of the time that we've got together here today. Limit distractions where possible. I'm going to put in a trigger warning because the very nature of the conversation that we're here to have may lead to us sharing things that may explore sort of serious issues around mental health or suicidality. I'm going to encourage you to get involved. What you put in will determine what you get out from this session, so please do your 50%. I'm going to ask you to be open, honest, and respectful. And also, if someone shares something you don't like or agree with, that's okay. They're entitled to their opinion as you're entitled to yours. I ask you to have an open mind and an open heart to new ideas, new perspectives, new ways of doing things. Use I statements. So when making statements, I believe, in my opinion, I think that, rather than speaking on behalf of others. And we do ask that if someone shares something of a personal nature, that don't share that outside of this session. Only caveat to that is for safeguarding reasons. If someone shares something that impacts their safety or the safety of others, that's the only time we break the rules around confidentiality. So what are we here to explore today? So today we're going to explore what holds men back from speaking about mental health. We're going to explore the stories we tell ourselves about strength and the relation that has to our ability to open up regarding our mental health. We're going to explore sort of how conversation can be used as an act of courage. And we're also going to explore sort of small ways that we can help making talking feel safer, being vulnerable and opening up, how we can create more safety around our ability to do that. So this is a space to reflect, reset, remind ourselves of when things shift, we can find our footing, and we can make a difference to ourselves and each other by tackling the guilt, shame, and stigma that still, even now in 2025, exists around mental health, particularly with men. I'm not saying that it's just men, but we know that men are significantly affected by this issue and are less likely to open up, ask for help, and seek out support. So what does being strong really mean? What does that mean to you? Actual question, not a rhetorical one. Go for it, Amrish. I can see your hand up, and Nanda. If you've got something to share, what does strength mean to you?
Yeah, strength. It was it's in all sorts of different, capacities, but there is this big stigma still around this. Although it is a lot better, but around this macho image,
Hmm.
and being the provider, not appearing weak, to the opposite sex, as well as just society. And that is, I think it's unconsciously still ingrained in men, even though you know um even though it is a lot better these
Hmm.
days. So um but feelings and emotions, seeking help, even opening up to the loved ones, and then you've obviously got the cultural factors coming in there
Absolutely.
as well. But yeah, it is strength in all different capacities, but for men it seems to, um, you know where applicable, it seems to be um, around holding things together, being the
Sure.
provider, all these sorts of things, rather than in discussing feelings and emotions, and these things take the back seat.
Hmm.
This is the
Thank you,
thing.
Amrish. Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate your input. Thank you. Yeah, it's that grown men don't cry, soldier on, pull your socks up and get on with it. Yeah, absolutely. Steph, you've also got your hand up. What would you like to share? What does strength mean to you? I've also got Curtis. You've got your hand up. Curtis, have you got something you'd like to share? What's your perspective on being strong?
Um, yeah, so it's just trying to find your voice, really, to put um your feelings across.
Yeah.
I've had a bit of a wobble recently, which I didn't see coming, if I'm honest. It wasn't
Mm.
until I went and seen my GP, and they asked what was wrong. I couldn't really say, and then I had a full-on meltdown. Um, So yeah, I don't really know, but it's just, I suppose, taking the step to be able to move forward.
Yeah,
Admitting
absolutely.
admitting it to yourself maybe first before others.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you, Curtis. And thank you for being vulnerable and being willing to share your experience. Judy, what comments have we got in the chat?
Okay, so we've got being resilient, having the courage to speak out, facing fears, sharing emotions, being able to speak about your feelings, cope with what life throws at you. Resilience has come up again. Understanding
Mhm.
that showing vulnerability is it's a strength, not a weakness. Doing the
Mm.
right thing, even when it's not the easy thing to do. Functioning on a daily basis, surviving to keep going no matter what. And there's a few more that have come through as well.
And I think this is something for us to consider. We have a real spectrum of ideas about what being strong really means, and some of them are actually really powerful suggestions, but there are some that actually can be counterproductive. And this is again one of the things that we need to consider. So being strong could be like I've got it all together and I'm the provider and I don't cry and I don't express emotions and I'm in control. I've got strength. I've got influence. And what is the challenge to these negative stereotypes of being strong? And how might that impact people that might be struggling with their mental health, for example? And also, where do some of these ideas come from? So I'd love to hear from some of you as to how does some of our perspectives around strength impact how we deal with mental health and where these ideas come from? Go for it, Graham.
Hi, thank you. I think a lot of it is fear. I
Yeah.
think the thing that makes it really, really hard is actually it's a thing that you're kind of ingrained at from a really, really young age, that actually, because you have to be strong, and that definitely means not crying, and that definitely means never showing fear. And without fear there's no bravery, but it's that kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of that kind of that fear that comes behind it, that you're going to be seen as lesser, you can be seen as not as much as you should be, not a man, that kind of thing.
100%. And it's really interesting, when we track back the origin story of some of the phrases like soldier on and pull your socks up and get on with it, they came from the Second World War, where it was required. Like, we had to soldier on and pull our socks up and get on with it. But there was a reason for that at that time. Those phrases don't work in modern society, because the people that pull their socks up and soldier on and don't cry and don't express emotions are the ones that are significantly more likely to struggle with their mental health and face serious issues with their mental health, and potentially experience suicide ideation or worse. And this is really where we do need to look at what is fit for the world that we find ourselves in today, where the main cause of death for a man under the age of 50 in Western society is what? I'm sure many of you already know the answer to this. Anyone like to share? What is the main cause of death for a man under the age of 50 in Western society? It is suicide. Yes. Yeah. Very sadly, it is suicide. So this is why we need to get better at having these conversations and reaching people long before they get to the point where they seek the ultimate permanent solution to a temporary problem. Because some of our kind of assumptions around what it's like to struggle with your mental health are completely outdated. It is not a sign of weakness. It is not a failing or a failure. In fact, the failing and failure is when we struggle to be vulnerable. So here's a bit of a reframe. Well, why would, firstly, before we get to that last point, why is it that people struggle to be vulnerable, particularly men? Why are they less likely to put their hand up and say, you know what, I'm really struggling. I'm finding it really tough right now. Yes, Christopher, they feel it's a weakness. What could be the reaction to someone admitting that they are struggling? So, Katie, you're absolutely right. Judgment. Yeah. What kind of judgment? And obviously, you mentioned judgment. In what ways, for those of you saying fear of being judged or judgment, what kind of judgments you might face? Parvinder, you're right. Discrimination. Yeah. Stereotypes. Yeah. Yeah, it could be not just loss of job. It could be like, maybe not being promoted or not being able to progress in career and life in society. Yeah, absolutely. So there is real world consequences because people react to the admission of vulnerability by judging it to be a weakness. Loss of masculinity. Yes. So essentially that there are people that will face discrimination and prejudice as a result of admitting that they're struggling with their mental health. Now, we've made so many advancements in society. I'm not saying it's perfect, but when it comes to gender equality, when it comes to race, religion, sexual orientation, would you agree we've got a little bit better, or in some cases a lot better, at being able to have grown-up conversations in a variety of different aspects of life, right? I heard recently, up until like the 70s, for example, a woman needed a man to co-sign a mortgage. And, there's things that right now we would think is completely ridiculous. We're not that long ago. But we've made so many advancements in those areas. But when it comes to mental health, people today in 2025 are still very likely to face prejudice and discrimination. And we don't have programs in the way that we've had for diversity, inclusivity, and equality to cover mental health in the same way. So we've still got a lot of work to do that. And firstly, I'm not saying I'm correct. How many of you feel that you are still likely to experience some level of stereotype, prejudice, or discrimination if you put your hand up and admit you're struggling with your mental health? Not just in the workplace, just in general. So those of you got your hand up. So Jeff, Alistair, Dan, what are your thoughts? What would you like to share? Amanda, I see many of you putting your hands up around that. What are your thoughts and perspective on this? In what ways are people likely to face discrimination or prejudice? Any of you got your hand up? There's several of you. Feel free to jump on your mic.
I think for me, it's something. Oh, sorry, go on. I was going to say, I think it's just not wanting to be sort of known as the one who can't handle it, sort of thing. Labelled as, oh, he's troubling because he's always miserable, he's always off, he's always down, he's always moaning about his own problems or whatever it is. You don't want to be labelled as the one that's causing a fuss, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Amanda, you also had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from my point of view, being treated differently in as much as target hitting, how I concentrate, how I work best, versus some very autocratic management types. It doesn't work, and it ends in aggravation. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Judy, what have we got in the chat? What kind of discrimination are people likely to experience if they're struggling with their mental health?
So we've got one that says, for people who are neurodiverse, they can sometimes struggle to express their feelings, emotions to loved ones and trusted ones, and that's when negative thoughts can take over. Another one says, because managers tend to be male, older, or different generation, fixed mindset, and not receptive to mental health issues. The problem is we identify with ourselves, those labels, and that's the issue. And not being picked for the team, being overlooked, being lazy or work shy.
And Judy, that's a really good point, is that we start to believe the stereotypes, right? If society believes that you're weak, you can't cope, you're not good enough, or you're pathetic because you're struggling with your mental health, then you might start to believe that you're weak, pathetic, can't cope, and not good enough. Does that make sense? So we start to embody those public stereotypes, and you might then hold yourself back from trying to progress in your life, in your career, in relationships, in social settings. So yeah, absolutely. So I think that's something that we really do need to reframe. What does being strong really mean? And for me, and I also did see a couple of comments around this in the chat as well. Vulnerability is a strength. How many of you would agree that it takes a stronger person to put their hand up and admit they're struggling than to pretend like everything's fine until it's not? Does that make sense? So see several of you putting your hand up, because it's easy just to say, yeah, everything's fine, and then it's not. But actually, like, to be able to put your hand up and say, yes, you know what, I am struggling, and to seek out the support, that takes a stronger person to do that. Alistair, I know that, Alistair Davies, I know you had your hand up before. Do you have something that you wanted to share? I didn't get a chance to get to you.
Hopefully you can hear me, because I'm using a different mic. Good.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I think much of the difference in the sort of reception that you get depends on the nature of the context of the conversations. Often in work, it's a sort of polarized view where either it's sort of people are kind of have a view that you're sort of not quite wrapped up in cotton wool, but nobody can sort of have a robust conversation with you because you may well be suffering with mental health, so people tend to sort of isolate and leave you alone. But also in the industry that I work in, there's very much the sort of man up, get on with it type approach, which is changing, and it's helped recently. The chap that I work for as director has actually just become qualified as a mental health first aider, so it is changing, but yeah, and I don't know whether this is sort of more of a reflection of me, but I so I work from home on a Wednesday afternoon because I'm actually having one-to-one therapy, and the only person that I've been comfortable to talk to about that has been my manager. And yeah, I'm not sure whether that's that's probably just my perception of other people and their misunderstanding of what therapy entails. So I'm not sure whether that helped or what you were looking for, but yeah, those are my thoughts.
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong. This is just a space for us to discuss, explore, and share together. So I appreciate you sharing, Alistair. And Chris, you've made a really interesting point, Chris Dainton, that we live in a Mickey-taken culture where other guys won't react sympathetically and could potentially make it worse. Yes, I can see that, but I can also say from first-hand experience, having worked in many different industries, including very masculine industries like engineering, construction, the military, that when people are actually really making serious admissions of vulnerability, what we have observed is actually people might not know what to say, but actually a lot of people now are wanting to reach out and support. So I think part of this is that we might feel that people will take the mickey, but a lot of people that have had challenging experiences and have opened up, I found that actually people might not have known what to say, but they've done their best to be there for that person. What's everybody else's thoughts around that? Because I appreciate that men in particular might feel that they're going to be face admissions of vulnerability with someone taking the mick, making fun of them. What is your thoughts on this? For any of you that have opened up to friends, Sean, you've got your hand up. Is there something you'd like to share?
I think that was from earlier, but yeah. So I'll just reflect for now.
Okay, cool. Anyone else got any thoughts on this? That how even though that we believe that people will make fun of us and they won't take us seriously, has everyone got an experience where they may have opened up and actually were surprised at the reaction response they got? Go for it, Craig.
Alistair was talking there about actual mental health first aid, which I've received training in. And I think one of the things that it helps you do, and this has helped me kind of open up, I've kind of learning it almost professionally, but actually it helps you learn to use that language to actually have those uncomfortable conversations. And I think a lot of people, we don't want to have the uncomfortable conversations because it makes us feel uncomfortable. But actually just that skill of non-judgmental listening, talking, being really open, really honest. But I do think it's a skill, and I think it's something that actually you maybe have to take time to try and learn, because it feels weird and uncomfortable and you don't like it. You'd rather just, have a bit of a laugh and we'll just, like have a drink or something,
Absolutely. And here's the thing is, if someone is admitting that they are struggling, we don't need to fix, we don't need to give them an answer or a solution, but one of the most powerful things that we can do is provide a shoulder and an ear and listen and be there for that person. Because how many would agree that just our ability to express ourselves, to be able to open up and articulate what we're experiencing, can be enough to change how we're feeling? How many would agree with that statement? Even if someone gives you no solutions, no answers, but just is there to listen, how powerful that can be? Absolutely. And that's very much kind of central to our program, which is called Mental Health Champions, is how we can be there as that person to listen and provide a shoulder and ear to people that are struggling. Amrish, I know you've got your hand up. Something you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just want to say, there's times without even thinking about it, well, what is this person like? If I'm struggling in some respect, just automatically find myself talking to a woman, not because that's how ingrained it actually is in society. No, I'm not going to talk to any of the lads because they'll take the piss. And even if then they are better, then the support I will see won't be as good. And that's something different, but my best friend I can talk to about that. There's times that you will hold back, but men problems, absolutely anything, general life, and yeah, so and also another thing I wanted to say is that not just this, but with mental health in general, there is a very big, not that there isn't those people who are, supportive, but there's a very big emphasis on the NHS will deal with it, these will deal with it, that will deal with it, but it's about taking responsibility as a society. I get because it doesn't need to have a professional necessarily, and even if it does, there is ways other people can help, but you can't just throw everything towards healthcare services. So it's not, I'm not saying that services are perfect, but it's not just their responsibility.
Thank you. Thanks, Amresh. Desmond, you've got your hand up. Is there something you'd like to share? Alistair?
Yeah, I was just to make a couple of points, really. I've got the privilege of being a captain at a Talk Club, which is a men's mental health charity. And I think the rise in popularity of these types of Talk Club come from the fact that when people are there, they can talk, and part of the protocol of the meeting is that people are not allowed to interrupt. They can listen, and they listen to non-judgmentally. And most importantly, then people are not allowed to try and solve their problems for them. So I think it gives it's a good thing. I think some of the reluctance of men to listen to other men's or anyone's really problems when it comes to mental health is there is this innate desire to problem solve when somebody presents an issue. And in the majority of cases, the individuals may feel, uncomfortable and/or they don't necessarily have the necessary sort of information to be able to try and problem solve. And I think some of the uncomfortableness it sits around that. So it's sort of, it's kind of the two ends of the same sort of point, really, which is one of the benefits is being listened to non-judgmentally and within the control of a structured conversation. That's found to be really, really beneficial for the men that participate. But equally, we can understand why there is some reluctance by some men to listen to problems, because they're not, that desire to, I want to fix your problem, they can't do it, and
Absolutely.
that feels deeply uncomfortable. So it's the uncomfortableness of trying to listen to somebody's issues, and then the fact that they're thinking, I don't know how to fix your problems, and that feels really hard.
Alistair is such a good point. In the desire to fix someone's problems, you're not really being present to what's being expressed. And our job really is not to fix people, it's just to create a container where they can express themselves, where I think the phrase that we all need to embody is it's okay to not be okay. And if someone is struggling, like our job is to ensure that we're taking the time to understand what they need and how we can support them, rather than assuming they want a solution or that we can fix them. Because unless you're on this call and you are a mental health professional, some kind of psychological professional, psychotherapist, counselor, whatever, you're not qualified to give someone advice. You might think you've got the best solution, but that's not your role. For us as friends, colleagues, family members, people within a community, our role is just to show love, compassion, and empathy to the people around us. How do we do that? By giving them our presence, by taking the time to listen. And also, when people are admitting that they're struggling, where they're opening up about how they might be challenged with their mental health, is again just creating the space for them to express themselves, and also allowing them to really be vulnerable without that being viewed as a weakness. How can we do that? How can we give people the space to be vulnerable without that being viewed as a weakness? How can we redefine strength that might change the narrative around mental health? I've got any thoughts on that?
I think some of it's tricky to do it in the moment because it's about your relationship with that individual and whether or not you act with integrity when you're talking about other people. I think that if you're somebody that will gossip about other people and run other people down, I think that's you're less likely to have somebody open up to you, I would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's kind of explore this a little bit more. So men are less likely to seek help for stressful life events, substance use, depression, due to, well, we've already discussed this. There's the social norms around masculinity, about the kind of the sense that we should have it all together. We can disconnect and isolate ourselves. We shut down and withdrawn. We downplay the symptoms because we don't want to admit it to ourselves. I'm not saying this is just men, by the way, but we know that men are significantly adversely affected by issues around this. So yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. No, it's fine. I'll be okay. Until it's not. And then also that kind of pressure that we put ourselves under, that we need to handle it alone. So 3 out of 4 reported symptoms of anxiety, stress, or depression are men, and 1 in 2 men will experience mental health problems in their lifetime. So that's basically half of all men are going to experience a mental health problem in their lifetime. And out of the 352 suspected suicide deaths just in January of this year, 270, that's 75%, were male. That's just 1 month, but this is basically pretty much what the statistics have been showing over the last almost 10 years. There are 3/4 of attempts on attempts at suicide are men. So we really do need to tackle this because we are losing far too many young people to issues around men's mental health and suicidality. How does it make you feel when you read these numbers? You know, Noreen, I've just seen your comment. Men do turn to violence. They don't deal with mental health. 80% of suicides are male, yeah. And also the kind of methods that a man may choose to end their own life are ones that usually result in death. We found that typically when females are attempting to end their own life, the kind of methods they use are more likely to result in a failed attempt, if that makes sense. We're not going to go into specifics on that, but just want you to make aware that, again, it goes back to that solution focused mindset. Here's a problem I want to solve. I am going to basically choose a method that results in maximum success. Does that make sense? So these are the kind of things that we need to consider. They are solving a problem, as much as that problem is a permanent end to their life as well as their problems. So we need to get to people long before they get to that point. How do we do that? What stops us from talking about it? What's preventing us from opening up about our struggles, about reaching out, about being vulnerable? We've started to touch on some of these things. But if we're going to tackle this, we really need to be clear. Go for it, Stephanie.
So I lost a friend 2 years ago today due to suicide, and we had a conversation before, like a couple of months before it happened, because they were really struggling. They were going through IVF, work pressures, family life, things like that. And I think because of the reason you just said, when talking to people, they want to try and fix things or give solutions. I think that prevents people from seeking sort of professional help because they think that they don't have the answers, or you know, they've thought about the potential fixes and they don't think that it would make a difference, when I think it could really help.
Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe you tried something that didn't work, and exactly as you said, Stefan, you get to the point where it's just not going to work. Therapy's not going to help. Opening up and being vulnerable is not going to help. It's a waste of time. I give up. And also it can get to the point where the emotional pain you're in is so great that any solution to end that emotional pain seems viable, even if that solution is turning off turning the off switch on your life. So yeah, these are things that we really do need to consider. So thank you, Stephanie, and I'm really sorry that you lost your friend. I sadly also lost one of my best friends 3 years ago, and it's really, really tough to try and reconcile an experience like that. So yeah, I feel for you. Tom.
Yeah, hi. You mentioned pain, and I think one thing that's always resonated with me, and unfortunately I'm in the same club as you two, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call, best man at my wedding took his own life about 3 years ago. And it's only since then I've been able to share and be vulnerable, and I've never had a pushback or been laughed at or anything else. But before that event, I didn't have the strength because I didn't feel like I could stand out and step up. But since doing so, I implore everyone to do it. But one thing about pain, and I think that's the ultimate, unfortunately, the goal of suicide and ending your life is taking away the pain. And one thing that has always resonated with me is you're not taking away the pain by taking your own life. You're actually just pushing the pain onto other people. And unfortunately, I feel that, and I've felt it for the last 3 years, and I'll probably feel it till the day I die. So I think it's just important that when we talk to people that are in really serious situations, I'm also a mental health first aider and other things, it's actually understanding, listening, and all the other things is really, really important. We're not here to solve a problem, but we're also there to ensure that they understand that them taking their own life doesn't solve a problem either. It disperses a problem, and we're here to help them through whatever they're going through.
And Tom, you're absolutely right, and thank you. It's a really good point, really well made point. You know, we're not there to fix and solve, but essentially the message that we can deliver is you're not alone. I've got your back. I'm here with you, and whatever it is, that we'll walk the path together. And I think if we can reach our friends, our brothers, our neighbors, our sons, our fathers, our uncles, and beyond. I'm not just reserving this to men, by the way, but I know we have a significant issue with men. That if we can start to deliver a message, I'm here for you. You're not alone. Whatever it is, that we'll walk this together. Because often people are walking the path alone. As I've shared at the beginning of the call, I started my journey into mental health 22 years ago, off the back of a breakdown and attempted suicide, and I've probably never felt as alone as I did in that moment where I made the decision that the pain I'm in is too great. So I think this is really where this isn't an individual problem. It's not an individual that's broken. This is a societal problem, and society is failing. And what we've also got to bear in mind, there are places around the world where they have next to no issues around suicidality and very low instances of mental health. They're known as blue zones. And there's many different reasons where people have longer, happier, healthier lives in these regions. And it's not because they've got access to everything at their fingertips. They don't have Amazon Prime and hospitals and supermarkets like we do, but they've got other things that we don't. And one of the most important components is the sense of community. And that, for me, is something that we can really take into our own hands. You don't need someone in a position of authority to fix this. It needs all of us to step up and to show that love, compassion, empathy to those around us, to reach out to our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, to create those safe spaces to be able to express ourselves. And when we do admit that we're struggling, that's not seen as a weakness. Actually, that's celebrated as a strength, because you're brave enough to talk, hence the title of today's session. So yeah, let's change the narrative. Let's tackle why people might be fearful or afraid to open up. Let's instigate those conversations, and how one conversation can change anything. Someone I've got to know over the last few years, I did a podcast with him. I'd like to consider him a friend, called Johnny Benjamin. He's a very well-known campaigner around mental health. And he was on Waterloo Bridge, rush hour, first thing in the morning. He'd escaped from a hospital where he was there as a result of his mental health, hospital gown, slippers, and he was on the bridge ready to jump off and end his own life. And if you've ever been to London or you're familiar with Waterloo Bridge, rush hour commuter time, there's probably hundreds of people that walked past, saw him up on the bridge and just carried on walking. But one person stopped and engaged him, said, "Mate, what are you doing up there? Are you okay?" And essentially encouraged him to not jump, but to just step down and have a coffee with him and have a chat. Ended up being a best-selling book called Stranger on the Bridge, because that stranger on the bridge saved his life. And just being able to reach out to someone that might be in a compromised space to create the space for a dialogue could be the turning point. It could make the difference. And how many of you have got experiences where someone did reach out and engage you in dialogue, or you did that for someone else and made a difference? Because as I said, in Johnny's case, he's alive because a random stranger reached out to him on the bridge. And if you're interested, you can look him up on YouTube. You can get a copy of his book. It's called Stranger on the Bridge. And I think this, for me, epitomizes the challenge that we're dealing with. A lot of people, either because they don't know what to say, don't know how to engage, or are fearful, won't stop and engage. Who has experiences that you'd like to share, either when you've received that from someone else or you've been able to provide that to someone else? Desmond, you got your hand up. I'm not sure if it's to share something on this point, or you have something that you'd like to share, or for anyone else. Go for it, Stephanie.
Yeah, it's me again. Sorry. So a different case. So I had a friend. They were addicted to alcohol and drugs, substance misuse. Thankfully, they came to me one day, and they were really struggling at a really, really low point. During conversation, they informed me that they had some pills that they were intending to take. But I sat with him for a number of hours, offered him a place to stay. He was, kind of like at breaking point. I removed the pills from that day, went through so many conversations, and to this day, so he changed his life around following that conversation. And I get a message from him every year to say that he's still sober. He's now counselling other people and supporting other people. It's amazing how a conversation can make a difference. It's amazing how feelings can change. It's just sort of a pinpoint in life of how you feel during that. But there are so many things that can just make a real difference. Because if you think about sort of your teenage years and how big things seemed, and then something will happen, you'll find a new relationship, a friend or whatever, and it can just make a real difference. So yeah, I'm thankful that I was able to open the door and speak to him.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing that. And that's so amazing you were able to reach your friend in that way. And this is, often what I say to the people around me, we can change the world one conversation, one question at a time. Just making meaningful inquiries about the welfare and well-being of the people around us, creating the space to have those conversations. Even as far as the most commonly asked question on the planet is, how are you? Which is also the most BS question you can ask anyone, because most people are not honest. Maybe following that up with a, how are you really? And really encouraging people to be able to express themselves. Because as I said, and Stephanie, as you so beautifully highlighted, you can make a difference to someone's day or someone's week or someone's life just by being there to have that conversation, to reach out, to create that space, to offer a shoulder and an ear. And this is, as I said, something we all have the power to do. One question, one conversation at a time, we can really make the world a better place. Go for it, Alistair.
Yeah, sorry, just to sort of, again, I'm not here to overly publicise Talk Club for Men, but that's one of the things that that we do in order to be able to encourage men to talk about their feelings. Is ask the first question is how are you feeling out of 10, and that's always a good sort of conversation point. A number of people on here have made the point about the a lack of emotional literacy, typically amongst men. But scoring yourself out of 10 is quite an easy access point. There's obviously subtle nuances. You know, 7's a very safe score, and so sometimes we challenge that. And say, is it more like a 6 or more like an 8? But yeah, that's just another way to just another tool, really.
I'm not a mind reader. I didn't know you were going to say 7. Why is asking people how they're feeling out of 10 fundamentally flawed? I'm going to give you a real hack here, Alistair. You'll really appreciate this, because most people will say 7, and you can then absolutely challenge them. But the first question will be a default response. 7 is the equivalent of saying, I'm fine, thank you, can't complain, not bad. It's kind of the default response. It's not telling us anything about the person. So the vast majority of people, and there are people on this call that may have done our Mental Health Champions program. There's I can see a few familiar faces, Joanne and a few others. You will know that we've workshopped this in great detail. There is absolutely no point asking someone how they're doing at a scale of 10, because first response will be a default one. Alistair, how are you doing on a scale of 13 to 63?
Yeah, I hear you on that, and I sort of get where you're coming from, but my lived experience within the groups that we run on a fortnightly basis in Taunton is within the context of the room and the perspective of people being there to be able to be listened to non-judgmentally. In our experience, and documented really in the data, 7 isn't a typical score.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So I you know, that's not to dismiss your point. I believe both systems are valid. It's all about the context in which they're deployed, really.
And Alistair, you made a good point. If you've established psychological safety, people are comfortable in that space, they're likely to be open and authentic, and you've already set that template, and they're not going to say 7, great, then you've got something that works. I totally hear you on that. What I'm talking about, if we're just approaching someone cold, you haven't established that sense of comfort and psychological safety, people generally opt for the easy response, the default response. Does that make sense? So what we're talking about is asking better questions. This is why the slide says the language we use really does matter. If you ask a question that's likely to get a default response, then that's what you've created. Really, what you want is to be able to observe, are people actually stopping and checking in with themselves? So ask a question that they don't have a standard default response. It's not the number that I'm interested in if I'm asking someone how they're doing on a scale of 7 to 29, for example. It's the fact that they stop and check in with themselves. Does that make sense? The number is not the most important thing. Equally, when you ask someone, how are you really feeling, or how are you really doing? It's not what they say. It's the fact that they're stopping to check in with themselves is what we're looking for. In modern society, it was research that was published earlier this year. It suggests in Western society, humans on average check their mobile phones, their smartphones, 96 times a day. How many times do you check in with your heart? How many times do you check in with yourself? And I'm going to say a lot of people don't ever check in with themselves. So we know more about what's going on in our devices and in the world at large than we do about what's going on within ourselves. So, Alistair's raised a good point there. Asking questions that encourage people to check in with themselves. And you'll know because there'll be a pause, there'll be a moment where they're kind of looking for the answer, they're reflecting, and that's really what we want to be able to do, is create the space where people can check in with themselves. Men often speak through actions, focus, solutions. It's not always feelings. So how can we create language that allows us to connect with how we're doing internally without saying how are you feeling? Because a lot of people might be like, feelings? I don't do feelings. What are you talking about? So how can we talk about mental well-being and mental health in a way that feels more natural for men? How can we start to create that language? And really, here's the ask: is what can we do? What action can we take to more of these kind of spaces exist at work, at home, amongst our friends? that we start to reframe vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness, to change that narrative. So who has some suggestions here on a phrase or an action that might help someone to open up, where we create a space where we can listen rather than feel compelled to offer solutions or to fix, and spaces where people can be open, honest, and we can show empathy and connection? So someone got any suggestions around this so we can start to rewrite the story around what it means to be strong? Graham, I like that. What's going on with you? Yeah, perfect. Anyone else got any thoughts? Yeah, go for it, Desmond. Okay. Awesome, Ruth. Yeah, what do you need? How can I support you? How does today feel? Yeah, what's going on with you? What have you been up to? Absolutely. What challenge do you face today? Or flip side, what are you grateful for? But the whole thing here is that get someone talking, get them comfortable and feeling safe expressing themselves, and then we can obviously continue to peel back layers of the onion to deepen our understanding of kind of their emotional experience in order for them to be able to more deeply connect with their emotional experience. So really, in terms of how we take this forward, we had a huge subject and a tiny amount of time to cover this. It's not about fixing, it's about showing up authentically and honestly. And what I'd love for you to do is, before we close the call, is what can you take from today's conversation? What actions can you commit to? What is one small thing that you can do now in the next 24 hours to reach out, to support someone, or yourself if you need support, to connect with those around you? So I'm going to encourage you all to consider what is an action that you can take as a result of today's conversation. What can you do to be a part of the solution? We've written a little guide to accompany today's session. Judy's going to put the link into the chat. If you click that, that'll open up the resource material that supports today's session. So please do download that. And yeah, Ruth, thank you for that and for the reminder. Before you leave, take a nice, slow, deep breath. I know it was a bit of a heavy conversation, so anything that was challenging or uncomfortable about today's conversation, please leave it in today's call. Our next conversation on the 4th of December is going to be about connection over celebration, how we can really sort of make the most of the festive season and the real sort of deeper meaning. It's not about the commercial aspects, but how we can really use this as an opportunity for presence and connection, and some discussions around that. We do have our Mental Health Champions program coming up in February. We just a few days ago celebrated our 22nd anniversary. So to celebrate that, we're offering a 50% discount for anyone that would like to attend. I can see a few of our lovely champions here on the call. And that's how we can really make a difference. So if you would like more information about that, please feel free to reach out. Again, Judy will put a link into the chat. Also, we've just launched our Global Stress and Mental Health Survey. Help us to build a real picture of where we are now and use your voice to help shape the future around wellbeing support, inform global insights, which we're going to be sharing far and wide, which in turn hopefully will allow us to take even more action in 2026. So you can scan the QR code on the screen. Judy will put a link into the chat as well. Also, just in return for giving us your thoughts around sort of mental health and stress, you'll be entered into a prize draw, so you could win a number of different wonderful gifts as a little thank you for contributing to this study that we're doing. So please do take a few minutes to complete that. So yeah, that link will go into the chat and it will be on the email that goes out tomorrow as well. Do check out our website, lots of free resources on there. If you are a HR, health and safety professional or workplace wellbeing specialist, and you're involved with strategic decisions in your workplace, feel free to join our People Culture Wellbeing Forum. Again, information of that will follow. We do have our weekly newsletters. If you want to keep up to date with all our wonderful offerings and new activities, please feel free to sign up for that. Again, link will be in the chat. We do also have an online training program. There's 50% off for the rest of the month for that if you are interested. If you like today's session, please give us some feedback. It really helps other people to find us as well. So you can do so on Google. And again, the link for that will be in the chat. If you have an employee assistance program in your workplace and you'd like a free review on that, again, you can reach out. If you are struggling yourself or know someone else that is struggling, there are some resources available. There's some telephone numbers and websites on your screen, depending on where in the world you are. So we will put this in an email, which will come out tomorrow, along with all the other information that's been shared on this call, as well as the recording, should you wish to share that with anyone else. Thank you so much for being here. We can only do this because you are here and you keep coming. So we're really grateful for your support and your attendance and your presence, and for being a part of the solution, for coming to these conversations to explore how you can better support those around you. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, we will hang out for the next few minutes, so feel free to stay on. I appreciate we have hit time, so for those you need to leave, thank you so much for being here and contributing to today's conversation. But as I said, if anyone's got any
Hello, if anyone wanted to chat with Neil, it seems like something is just temporarily frozen. So if you did want to share anything, just hold tight. He'll probably come back on shortly. Or feel free to drop anything in the text if you're all done and ready to leave. Thank you so much for being here.
Right, we're going to hang on for the next. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute. Desmond, I think you've got your hand up.
I will give it another 10 seconds or so, Judy, and then we'll say our final farewell. Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah, that's okay.
Anyone got any questions?
No, I think that was it. Lots of thank yous from everybody.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Sorry, my computer's frozen, so I've had to just come on. But if anyone's got any questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to jump on. We'll hang out for the next couple of minutes.
I think that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month. And remember, we can make a difference. One question, one conversation at a time. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next month.